The room is muted. If the meeting has started, can the room please be unmuted?
There you go.
Can you hear us now, Briar?
Hello, testing.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, since Carrie is not here today, I will be vice chairing. So let's start the meeting at the Housing Commission at 9:04. We usually start with introductions, so you want to introduce?
Gail Uzell, South County.
Chris Wilkes, Tolman.
Sarah Dental. Sarah Absher, Community Development Director.
Maureen Karlovic, nonprofits.
Dave Bennett, South County Representative.
Chris Keola, Tolman County.
Elizabeth Whipperman, Office Specialist with DCD.
Parker Sammons, Tolman County Housing Coordinator.
And online, I see some people, faces, Nan
Yes. Hi, Nan Devlin.
and who else is? O'Brien.
Briar Smith, nonprofit representative.
And that picture is not.
That's me. That's me.
Oh, I know, again. And is there anyone in the public?
Bigger idea.
Okay. And, thanks, someone over there.
Terry Cooper, EDC Director.
Both ways. So Commissioner Paul Fournier, it will be here at some point, and I think he wanted to hear some of the presentations, so if we could switch and not follow this. Actually, public comment. Sorry, let me go back. Did anyone want to say anything? Okay, anyone online want to say anything? Okay, so Paul can listen to the Brownfield Raw property soil survey updates. Parker, can you start with the HPSF update or?
Sure. Yesterday I went before the county commissioners and they approved the recommendations that this housing commission made for the Housing Production Solutions Fund. So that means that we will begin to enter into contracting as we are able and as the recipients are able to engage with us on that contract writing process. And similarly, this whole process usually takes a few months as we get these contracts written, executed, they all have to go before the board. And we also, they also approved Nate Palmer's Ordinance 85 workforce housing tax exemption for the Siegel Rest property as well at that meeting. And those are really the updates I have for the Housing Production Solutions Fund this month.
So with Parker going on paternity leave, I will be picking up the contracts with county council. So following yesterday's meeting, we will start setting up appointments to go over contract language and then meet individually with each of the recipients to finalize those contractual agreements for the monetary awards.
Okay, and I attended by telephone the meeting that with the county commissioners yesterday, having never done so, just to see what the next stage of our work does. And it was kind of an eye opener that, we do a lot to recommend housing funding for the commissioners to pass if they choose. But that's almost like the start of it. And as Sarah just said, it's like now making contracts and it all will then be in front of the county commissioners again. So it's quite a process and very, very transparent. So Elizabeth, or Parker, anyone have any Housing Production Solutions Fund questions from Parker?
Any updates, Parker, in terms of some of the applicants who had contingencies regarding funding, like the Tillamook Bay Commons, any updates on how they're doing?
I know that the Merle process is ongoing and we continue to be working really hard to try and get that to the finish line. There are, of course, challenges with the new program and it's taken a little bit to get it off the ground. We did make it contingent on a successful Merle application for our funding for Tillamook Bay Commons. The other contingencies we have seem to all be chugging along. Community Development Partners is actively looking for finding that last bit to get them up to the match level that they wanted for their application. And I've connected them with some people who might be able to help with that, including Fullpack. And the final contingency we had was for the, let me bring it up. Do you recall? Sammy's Place. That's right. And that contingency was a pretty easy and clear one. And that will be in our contract, which is that we wanted to demonstrate the Housing Commission's impact on the final affordability of those steeply affordable units. And so that contingency will be fulfilled when they actually make their final sale. We'll be given some sort of document that will show our impact on the final closing documents for making sure that we helped increase that affordability. So that is one that should not have any problem being fulfilled and one that we'll be looking for to close the contract at the end. Anything you'd like to add, Director Upshur?
No, just that with that, so we've got 2 trains running on 2 separate tracks. We have the specific Merle application for Tillamook Bay Commons and then ordinance development. So we are actually doing both. So while Mr. Wade's application continues to be under review, and that review is both by the county and OHCS. One of the things that we've recently become aware of is that OHCS's review of the loan application is far more narrow in scope than what we were given the impression of, which means that they are actually leaning more into the county on the loan review process. So we are pivoting to get that work done. With that, and that's something that's very important for us to know, because as we are also developing the ordinance for this program, we are being informed of how to develop that ordinance with our experiences that we're going through with Tillamook Bay Commons. So it's turned into quite a quite a project. There is a county team involved in that includes the finance director, it includes the county assessor. So I am primarily the author of that ordinance with the county council. And when we have that draft ready, I will bring that back for you and give you a presentation so you can see what that looks like. And then hopefully by then also the Tillamook Bay Commons application will be at a place to where we can come back and also kind of give you an overview of the process, lessons learned, what came into the ordinance as directly from our experiences with this MRL application. So I'm anticipating that ordinance completion sometime probably by the end of, I think it's going to take us a bit to do. I would like to say end of spring, but I think midsummer is probably more realistic. In the meantime, Tillamook Bay Commons can continue to move along. One does not have to be done without the other, but we want to make sure we get it right.
And I'd just add that we're not the only community facing these challenges that's trying to engage with the MRL program. I think Coos County has encountered all of the same problems that we have. The attorneys are talking to each other, trying to find solutions that work, but it's an ongoing process for sure.
Yeah, and it's a new program, so even at the state level, imperfections are expected.
Yeah.
You know, it's something we have to work out as the process continues to mature.
And in terms of other successful applicants, maybe last year's applicants, any updates on those projects? Jeff Wong's, for example?
Mr. Wong has been having lots of success this year. He has successfully gotten the tax credits, the agricultural workforce housing tax credits. And just to remind you all, this kind of leads nicely into some of the work that Elizabeth has been doing.
Yeah.
But Mr. Wong was successful working with OHCS for this tax credit program. He has actively been shopping it first to community members. So anybody in the area who needs tax relief, local businesses. And I don't know where he's at in that process, but I do appreciate that he is reaching out to the community first to try and share that tax benefit. And to remind you, the state issues the tax credits for 50% the cost of his construction project. And then he needs to clear those tax credits, transfer them somehow. And usually this is like at 82 cents to 90 cents on the dollar. And so he is looking for partners who have a high tax burden who could use a little bit of relief. And he sells the tax credits to them at less than face value. And by doing that, he gets that money that would be tax relief later on for him up front and right now so that he can build his project today. Another program that Mr. Wong has been engaging with, and we'll have to check in with him. I have an email from him this morning about this, but NOAA, there's two NOAAs. There is the Housing Authority up in Warrenton, and then there is the Network for Oregon Affordable Housing. And they have a new program, which is a $5 million construction loan guarantee. And they are working together to see if that might be able to help him secure the final funding of financing for the project. So he's looking for a bank who understands agricultural workforce housing tax credits and the other grant funding that he's engaged with to do the final lending on the project right now.
That's great.
And to that end, I've been reaching out to local banks and asking if they need any help elevating their understanding of these programs so that they're more ready and able to work with community partners who are engaging with these financing programs. So a lot of work going on for Mr. Wong's project, and I'm really excited. That should be breaking ground this year, absolutely. Hopefully, we'll see stuff going vertical this year.
Or any kind of a summary we might get for that NOAA funding would be.
That's, great that you asked that, Dave. We actually have one right here. Yeah, in your, I don't know if you guys grabbed any of these on the way in, but there are one pagers that Elizabeth has very painstakingly crafted. And they have, and this is blurring into another one of our agenda items, if that's okay. And I thought I'd let you go ahead and.
Sure. Well, the other thing, just since Dave was asking about project updates. So I'm just gonna say I had very little part in this. I added some fluff and some land use stuff at the end. But Parker and Elizabeth did an outstanding job putting together an analysis for the opportunity zone for the Hebo region that we provided to Terry Cooper at the EDC and Commissioner Bell. So that was done a couple of weeks ago and hopefully that has given Terry what she needs to help supplement an application for an opportunity zone if the EDC chooses to move forward. But that was done also specifically in support of the Beaver area and the projects that we see that are coming online. And that dovetails nicely with long-range planning work that I am getting ready to do for the Cloverdale commercial waterfront. We've already got all of the middle housing pieces done, but there's some work we want to do to help Hebo and Beaver and Cloverdale in that Nestucca Valley region. So we are really excited about the possibility of an opportunity zone, and hopefully what we have given Terry will help support those efforts if the EDC chooses to move forward. And if any of you would like to see that document, we're happy to share it. I'm really proud of the work that we did as a team, and especially with the work that Parker and Elizabeth put into that. It's a fantastic document.
So Cloverdale's included within the EDC?
If there's an opportunity zone, it may be, but it actually, with the work that I am getting ready to do in Cloverdale, with those communities being so close to one another, the timing is just serendipitous if we can get all of these efforts and these updates off the ground. Yeah.
Can you explain what an opportunity zone is?
Yes, and I don't know if maybe we want to put Terry on the spot for a minute, if that's okay, Mark, to talk about that.
Sure.
So the opportunity zone is a federal project, project where investors can, invest in projects, commercial or, it does include housing, industrial projects. So if they have capital gains tax that they're gonna have to pay on a sale of a property, they can invest that money into another project. And if they stay in it within 10 years, they get a reduction in the amount of capital gains tax that they have to pay. And there's an even increased amount of reduction that they get if they invest in a rural area. So we are on hold. Business Oregon is waiting for the US Treasury Department to finalize the maps. And the US Treasury Department says it's gonna be in the spring. Well, so we don't know. We're getting as much stuff as we can ready ahead of time for the application. We don't know when it's going to open. Supposedly, according to Business Oregon, when they open it, it's gonna be open for 14 days only. So we'll have, from the time we know what the application looks at to the time we have to file it, we'll have 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it's a very arduous project. Only 25% of what is applied for will be approved.
Mm.
So we need to make a really strong application. So
Sounds like a good
we're
challenge.
busy doing as much groundwork as we can because we haven't seen the application to know what they're gonna ask us for. So we're trying to anticipate what they're gonna ask us for, and the report was great, and we're working with some other South County business owners and stuff to put together, I think that our biggest case for getting approved is showing that we have projects in the pipeline, ready to go. And hopefully that will, move us to the top. And because we're rural, it will also help incentivize our approval. We don't have a really good feel yet.
Do you know where the area is, or is that the part that's
Does it
being?
include Cloverdale? It's a big swath.
It's a census tract. It doesn't, I don't think.
No.
It goes, but it does go all the way down into Pacific City and kind of makes that weird.
Does it include like Beaver Hemlock area?
Hebo, Beaver. We had no choice in what tracks were chosen, that the US Treasury Department set their criteria as far as the demographics and the median income that was earned in the census tracts. So we have no say in what census tracts are eligible to be in an opportunity zone. We currently have an opportunity zone which goes from Garibaldi up to Manhattan Beach, which has not been utilized at all because there haven't been any projects
Yeah.
that have come online that could use it. So this one's gonna require a lot, if we do get approved, it's gonna require a lot. They want more marketing. So we'll have to have a marketing plan behind the application, I'm sure,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be a pretty heavy lift, but and we don't know yet about letters of support. When I was on the webinar last week for Business Forum, they said, well, we might do a online thing. People can submit online letters instead of people having attached them to the application. So we're still waiting. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
It's that top one.
This one right here.
yeah.
That
So
big
big
green
green
one.
Cloverdale, because
It goes
Cloverdale,
way down into Pacific City.
yeah.
Is that here? I can show you guys. So
Unfortunately, the maps don't usually have cities on them.
Beaver,
Oh, okay.
okay, Cloverdale. So this is, oh, does it include Hebo?
Yeah,
Hebo's right
it
here.
does.
It's on that side,
Just
yeah.
barely.
It-
So it does not include Cloverdale, but it definitely includes Beaver, because this is the intersection of 22 and.
Oh.
And I think it's
101.
It
most.
does go way down into Pacific City,
And then
which is
just get
strange.
right.
That's-
Yeah, I would say all of the work that we are doing in there is just like the cause and effect of what I see this, the potential of what I think could happen there is just huge, especially with, you know, you get your zoning and your land use in place. Then, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that can
And
come
when
with it.
positive things start happening, that is
Yeah.
kind of a domino effect. You know, if you get one project going,
Mhm.
then people are more incentivized to do other projects. So we hope.
Terry, was our report everything you needed from our end? or-
Yes, well, I don't know what I need yet.
Yeah.
It was a great report. Thank you for all the work. We don't know what it's gonna look like yet. We haven't even seen like a rough draft or any kind of an outline of what's gonna include.
When you're ready for letters from the Housing Commission, let Parker and I know, and we'll make sure everybody.
So it may be an online submission. I have another webinar coming out with Business Oregon to get ready for all of this. This is be the third one. And they're supposed to go over exactly what it's gonna look like.
And
Great.
that 14-day timeframe, do you anticipate that you'll have to have projects already queued up for that?
So we
That makes
have
my
the information from the Schlukas on their project. They sent us a great layout of everything, and we're gonna lead off with that one. And Mary Jones and the Pelican people are working on something. I don't know what it's gonna be like yet. I haven't received it, but supposedly they're working on something that we can also include in the application.
Great.
So I think we will have to include projects. That's the only way we'll stand a chance of getting approved, I think,
Mhm.
is that we have something ready to go on.
Thank you.
Any other work on it? Well, the work is ahead of us. Well, we're working on it now, but I think that 2-week time frame will be,
Tight tight turnaround.
it is, yeah.
It makes it hard to breathe.
Well, there was other good news for Mr. Shaluka's project. We met with DEQ and initially he was going to apply to CERTA only for the new units in that project because there is a new building and reuse going on there. But DEQ has said that all of these will qualify in the space efficient program. And so they're going to let them apply for all the units. So that was helpful as well.
Which project was that?
Kevin Shaluka's the schoolyard one. And yeah, and if you recall, CERTA has two wings. It has a space efficient wing and then a reuse wing, but they're gonna let him apply for all his units in the space efficient category. So that will make the application easier and will increase the amount you can apply for.
Great.
Good.
Yeah. I did want to, back to the Merle thing, when all of, or are people done with this topic? It just occurred to me, the county is working on the Merle, the laws and stuff, but the Adventist or the Clays thing is within the city of Tillamook, right?
That's a very good question, Mark.
So I assume at some point cities may do Merle stuff on their own.
Yes, and in this case, because this project is actually outside of the city, it
Is it?
is in the UGB. And so
Really?
It's right out, yeah.
there was a lot of back and
Right there.
forth. We really had to establish who was going to be the sponsoring jurisdiction applicant and if it could be the county. And ultimately, they decided that yes, because at the time of application, it's technically outside of the city. Once that construction starts going up, the city will be annexing it in. And they will be forced to start that process once it's connected to the wastewater system.
Interesting.
And so at that time, it will then eventually transition into being within the city.
Okay, so the city of Tillamook isn't as big as I thought it was.
It's, Mark, one block in either direction or one address in either direction and you are in the city.
Okay,
And so, yeah,
interesting.
It's actually
Wall
the
Street.
only property,
side city, one side county.
the Offenmeyer property is the only property there in that northwest corner that is in the UGB. The hospital is in the city across the boundary of Third Street is the city limits. So they just, for whatever reason, it's just that piece that's right now in the UGB.
So Tillamook, city of Tillamook this would be in the UGB, therefore it could be annexed and will be.
It's common practice of cities when development occurs to require annexation as part of that
Right.
development process.
and I believe the laws state that once the connection to the wastewater occurs, that the city is bound to begin the process of annexation.
Well, thank you for that. Completely ignorant about that.
No, it was a great comment and one that nobody thought of until it came up and was needed to be decided right then. So it was quite the hustle to work through that
Right.
particular issue at that point.
And because it's in the UGB, the county is the sponsoring jurisdiction, which is good in this case because we have made the commitment to pursue Merle for applications, right, that we deem are suitable candidates. If the city was the sponsoring jurisdiction without going through the process, Maker would not be eligible to apply. So it's good right now that they're where they're located.
Right. And I had a Jeff Wong thing that popped in my mind. The tax or his getting investors,
Yeah,
that doesn't really, what does that mean? Is there like a little Wall Street in Tillamook County? And it goes, I mean, who
So
is
this-
that?
That's a great question. I mean, the very first place you went was to see if the creamery had tax
Uh-huh.
liability that they needed some relief from. And then he contacted local farms, local
Oh, okay.
businesses. So anybody can be a purchaser of tax credits.
So I could do it if I.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you could probably, alleviate 10% of your tax burden through purchasing some of these.
Okay. Interesting.
It's fine. It'll convert.
But mostly it's, the larger employers who can, who usually have the type of burden that this will help
Right.
alleviate.
So Jeff is really a valuable asset to the Housing Commission in this, or the US.
Sure, and it's also, it's not uncommon for banks that are working with the project to purchase tax credits like this for their own tax liability,
okay.
and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. It's just another tangent thought of,
No,
What's
it's a
that
good
mean?
one, and that one is ongoing, and
Yeah.
it's not the last time we're going to face that one, because the ag worker housing tax credit is such a powerful program, especially out here. Mr. Schluka intends to apply for it. There are lots of opportunities to utilize that particular program here, especially with aquaculture being a little workaround for that on-farm program.
right, so like meat tarts, oysters or something.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. I keep beating this drum that one of the best tools that we have access to is helping aquaculture do housing in partnership, because this tax credit program can do 45% of the work financially. So really trying to help people understand this and find partners who have the land and the space. The smoker is increasingly interested. Interesting thing, the smoker reached out to Mr. Palmer and asked if it was possible to rent one of those duplex units to have shared housing for their employees. So our workforce housing is absolutely housing workforce in Bay City right now. So that's really promising. When Nate told me this, I said, Nate, I would return to the smoker with this information about ag worker housing tax credits and see if you can find yourself some more work here. And so they're going to have a conversation about that, and I'll wait to see how it turns out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gail, could you add something?
Just to comment that Jeff Wong's project is one of the smaller projects that we've done in terms of support for the number of units, but it looks like it's huge. And thanks to Parker and Elizabeth for all the behind the scenes work to pull all this stuff together. It's
Yeah, the mouse that roared.
Yeah.
as they say.
nice to see how, as we go forward, more things get connected to more things.
I'm hoping this can be a beacon that can attract other community members and see what's possible with this kind of partnership and support.
Well, as far as your comment about wondering which banks to talk to, Tammy Crosley with Columbia Bank
Yep,
does probably 80% of any ag loans in Tillman County.
Totally.
I mean, that bank is farmer friendly and that would be who I would tell you to go to.
yeah, and I think they're talking as well. I think that with Columbia acquiring Umpqua, there was a little bit of kerfuffle on who was managing what, but I know that that is one of the 3 banks that is in conversation right now. But I do want to make sure that all our local banks understand these programs as best I'm able.
So that's broad education for everyone.
Yeah, just it's, sometimes they look at these things and they don't know where it fits in their typical development underwriting. It doesn't fit in their box and they just sort of say no. And so trying to help them understand how these programs operate and who they can contact to verify things and whatnot has been helpful.
Kristen, did you?
Yeah, and I think thanks are due to Dave for sussing out this ag credit
Yeah.
program to begin with.
Definitely, yeah.
And it seems quite ironic that the farms are not interested.
Well, and the Director Absher can probably help explain this. A lot of that is down to use on their property, and that farm worker housing is different than agricultural workforce housing. It's a subtle but important difference.
It is. And it's so the process to do housing on EFU, exclusive farm use zoned land, can be far more complicated than an area like Mr. Wong's property. So, I think sometimes the hesitation just comes also with not wanting to deal with the headaches. Unfortunately. But the good news is that, and I expect to see in 2027, I think there's gonna be some legislative updates to some of those agricultural housing allowances to streamline and get rid of some of the barriers that are in the way to development on those properties. So I'm hopeful. We'll be tracking that closely.
And these are federal things, not state.
These are state.
Yeah. Oh, or US.
Oregon land use law for housing, especially on EFU zone property, is very stringent. And it is not,
Gotcha.
they do not make it easy because the intent is not to live there. The intent is to farm there.
Right. I remember Michelle
Yeah.
And so that is where this aquaculture workaround comes in.
Gotcha.
Because anywhere where aquaculture is operating, they consider to be on farm.
Right.
And so, but it doesn't carry with it the farm zoned land restrictions. And so that's how we're able to use this ag worker housing tax credit to build housing that is on farm, but not on a farm.
Right. So, or it's related to a farm, but it's in a residential area.
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
And this is why there's some legislative
Yeah, the states,
to try to draw out little pieces from farmland that might be acceptable or.
there are very strong feelings on both sides of that issue to either locking up farmland and make it even more restrictive,
Right.
or open it and allow for some more housing opportunities. And the battle's gonna occur in the 2027 legislative session.
Okay,
So
interesting.
we're getting ready.
Right.
Dave, one more update.
One of the challenges is dealing with septic.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Christie is here today. All right.
One other update on Mr. Wong's project, Dave, that I think you'll really like to hear this. So our last award to Mr. Wong did carry with it a contingency that the $80,000 that he received in the previous Housing Production Solutions Fund cycle be returned to us if his agricultural workforce housing tax credit application was successful. We wrote this so that he needs to send that money back to us at time of occupancy, not at time of construction. And this is all working really well for a few reasons. One, having that money in the bank is helping him go and meet with finance institutions and get lending going because it looks good and healthy. Two, he, with this workforce housing tax credit, is now just over the line on prevailing wage. And so it is actually now in the interest of the project to return those funds to us to keep him under the threshold for prevailing wage kicking in.
Oh, my gosh.
And so not only, so he gets to sit there leveraging our funds to get going, give it back, get under prevailing wage. We will have maximized the money we have given him to the nth degree on this one.
Wow.
It has been leveraged over and over on this project. So it's a really good illustration of how a little bit of money can go a long way on these projects, and we get it back. So,
Wow.
yeah,
This is
pretty-
like, we need a lot of Jeff Longs. right
yeah,
now.
that's a solid triple, if not a home run, you know, so pretty
Interesting.
good work there.
Do you know the size of Jeff's credit?
I don't, nor would I try and suss that out right now. I don't know where he's at with his credit, so.
You know, this time of year, there's folks coming out of their tax preparers' offices with frowns on their faces saying, oh my gosh, do I really have to pay that much in state taxes?
Yeah,
Great time to market those.
I'm actually, he keeps me updated on just the email chains, and two have come in this meeting discussing this exact thing. So I think you have the exact right of it. Like there are hungry people out there looking for these credits. So it's a good program. I'm excited to get more people into it. I will say though, that the application process for this is as complicated, if not more than Merle, but it is established. And so it's known, but there are over 150 items that need to be delivered to OHCS in that application process.
Even for the on-farm.
Even for the on-farm.
Oh my gosh.
It is a very extensive application, and so it's great that Mr. Wong had a good team in place and they were able to breeze through it, and Martin over there really helped them. And when I say 150, it's 150 items that need to get checked. It's not like 150 documents or reports or something, but it is an extensive application. And so I do want to have all the information and let anybody going into this be eyes wide open. I booked them a meeting with Martin, have him walk them through what the application will be for this project and just let them really know what to expect. Like, Mr. Wong was able to do it without too much hassle and get through it. So if it might be hard, but if you are willing and put the time in and understand these things, it's very, very doable.
I believe he promised to write up something.
He did, he was gonna
for
come
us.
and give us the whole story on everything as he gets into construction.
Right.
So,
That's exciting.
So if no more. oh,
Commissioner Fournier, he's on his way.
Okay, so Elizabeth, we might have perfect time for you to,
Yes. So my packet's kind of out of order, but I have put together some different flow charts for cities in the county. I've brought Tillamook as an example. It was the first one we did. And it just breaks down the process of permitting, trying to make it as easy to understand for people as possible. Recognize that they have to work with the city and the county to get permits. And showing, whatever information. And a lot of these will be on the website. And like where it says full checklist can be found at Tillamook County, people can click that and it'll go straight to that checklist.
So Elizabeth, can I jump in there for a
Yeah.
minute? So this is a product of great conversation and great training. So Elizabeth was with us about 2 weeks. And because she was also the newest staff person to our team, we knew she would be able to help us, aside from her incredible skill set with creating, presentable documents. But we knew she would not get in the weeds like the rest of my staff were. And this has been a desire of ours as a department for a very long time. And we talked about it actually here at the Housing Commission for over, throughout the last couple of years. And so we literally sat down with Elizabeth. It took us, 2 or 3 staff meetings. We started with Tillamook. We got Megan's permission to do this. But this is the culmination of staff training, conversations, what staff thought it would be important to note on this for customers. It's a great customer service tool. And I feel like I'm gushing, but I need to. She just did such an incredible job on this, and walking into our department literally was such a small knowledge base of what we do and how we do things. I'm proud of her and I'm proud of this work. So thank you, because we are so excited to use these for every city and they all love them as well. They were excited to see them. They look at them as a tool because now we actually have it on paper for our customers to see when they go to the cities, when they go to the county, and what that looks like. So we cannot wait to start using these. And so thank you for the incredible work on this.
Yeah, this is huge. On the consumer side of things, I have people call and say they want to purchase a piece of land and how do I build on it?
Yeah.
Can you
Like,
add to it?
yeah.
No. Yes.
Well, you're missing one component.
Your contact information?
No, fire letter.
Oh, so they go to the city and they get their checklist. This is just to say,
I'm just looking at this bottom section where you have everything but the fire letter.
this is for the city, so the fire letter would go to the city.
Okay.
But no, thank you. Okay, maybe we should think of that. You know what?
See, this is a
I know
good
the
work
checklist.
session.
We do, and actually, we had the distillery in Rockaway, something came up because the state fire marshal's office did not know they were converting it with combustibles and explosive flammable materials. And that actually caused a huge problem for them.
Okay. In Rockaway.
Before you go.
Elizabeth will send the copies to you. Will you send them to the realtor group?
Yeah, yeah, but if we could add to Chris Wiltz's point, which I think is an excellent one, we want a copy of that too.
This is amazing.
Isn't this incredible? And so one of the conversations we had in the office, sorry, Elizabeth, just to hijack this for a minute. We had like words matter. And it was, should it be 3-part process? Should it be 3-step process, right? So step and process, that was a good, 15-20 minute conversation just about those 2 words. And the reason why was because, as Chris knows, there could be multiple steps at one of these locations. And so we thought if we use the word step, it implies you do one thing and you're done. And so that's why we chose, like, it was a good exercise for staff, just in terms of really thinking about, like you said, from the consumer standpoint, what are the right words that are going to resonate with them and the words they will understand? And it's not often we get an opportunity to put that hat on the other side of the table and think about from their eyes, or through their eyes, what some of this may look like. So there was a lot of thought and a lot of work on Elizabeth's part also to really think about words and colors and logos. Like she pulled the colors from the cities. That's why so each city has their own logos and their tailored colors. So the branding part of this was really good too. So I'll stop now. I'm so proud of us.
And then I also included, in this little packet, some of the different funding sources. So we have the CERTA, the Low Embodied Carbon Housing Program, that Parker talked a little bit about earlier. We have the MERL, which we're all getting familiar with, agricultural worker housing tax credit, and then the loan guarantee, the NOAA loan guarantee, that is the last one. That Parker mentioned earlier.
And stuff that you email me, can you also send these flyers too?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And one of this, like our goal, talking about the development of these internally, was we're not always the ones doing the work. And it's not always us that is required to have that expertise, nor do we. So part of the goals were directional in terms of to the consumer, where do they go? We may be their touch point, but what are we handing the baton off to versus the work that we are doing in-house? And so a lot of these you'll see reflect that down on the bottom of how to apply. I would say the NOAA Construction Loan Grant Guarantee Program, because they don't apply through us, but we wanted to make it clear, this is where you go. And if you need some help from us, our contact information is also on these as well. But I thought that was a really important point because while we can be a steward of support, this work is not always ours.
And I didn't go to to our housing commission website, but I know Merle info is on there, right? So
Yeah.
is the intent to have, are these already on our website or are they gonna be?
There is for sure. I
don't think we put the loan guarantee program up yet.
Oh,
That
okay.
was pretty new.
And I'm just throwing it out there. I assume they will be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Merle and Serta are up there,
Okay.
and we'll build a little tab. We've also been changing our web hosting, and so we delayed some of our web updates until that process was completed.
The whole county
Yes.
website, the whole thing is changing again and being updated. So we know we're going to lose some things in that migration. So we're also like, there's things in every department that we're holding on to so they don't get lost
Or duplicate.
or duplicate work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this really is cool, because my wife and I were toying with building an ADU out of our garage, which is attached. And I assume a cute little thing like this might help, because we call the city of Manzanita Public Works. And we were referred to the ordinance, which is 100-page. Anyhow, it was a lot. And I didn't pay attention. My wife is a detail person. She had read it already. And so she was not amused. Saying, well, I'm a citizen. I don't know anything. And I'm not sabotaging this meeting. It's just as a resident of a town. And with ADUs now being not a permitted use, but a required use from Senate Bill 406.
And allowed use.
Allowed use. And so she just responded saying, well, I've read it now twice and I still don't know. So local jurisdictions could use something like this. And I will use this locally too. And if other people like Garibaldi, I don't know, all the other folks' rules.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elizabeth.
No.
That was-
So Mark, thank you for, we see that happen and, especially with homeowners.
Right.
Our goal is to try to limit that confusion because we know you're not the experts and no one should expect you to read a 100-page ordinance.
Right.
The city, so Manzanita is unique in that properties within city limits, they have their own building program planning, so you would not see one from them. These are our work in partnership with our cities because we manage the building program for every other city in the county except Manzanita. And we do their UGB, so this applies, if you were in the UGB, this would apply.
Gotcha.
But call me if you need some help.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what questions to have. Happy to help you. Yeah, it is, it puts you to sleep.
Because really not being a developer, one admires developers after even a little foot in the door of these things. Sorry, Elizabeth was there.
Nope, that's all right.
This is also another tangent from, Kristen and I were talking as we're now the Outreach and Education Committee with Michelle's resignation. And it occurred to me after a recent meeting that we are not forwarding information from the Outreach and Education meeting to each of you. It may go to the results of Elizabeth's work. Say, don't go to each of us. Let's each of us, as we on the Education Committee are doing things. So if you all don't mind, we will start.
So Mark,
Oh.
staff would be happy to do that, so we don't run afoul of public meeting laws with emails, so.
Okay, got it,
with-
sorry.
Yeah, so for those of you that may not know, Parker and Elizabeth are both leaving me by the end of this week. I'm gonna go cry in the corner. But, so I will be jumping in to help the two of you, and if there are things you want me to start sharing or putting in the agenda packet,
Right,
I will do that.
Wonderful.
I'm happy to do that, just let me know what you would like shared.
we just want to make sure everyone knows what's going on or has the opportunity to know what's going on. And rather than us, I didn't want the silo idea of
Yeah.
each subcommittee not talking to each other. as is legal.
And then we'll pick that back up when Parker returns too.
Cover some of that this afternoon.
Okay, so I think any other general comments before we go to the front of the agenda with Chris? Okay, so Chris Keola. Thank you.
I always feel like I have to stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stand and point. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Chris Keola. And my official title is Environmental Program Manager, but my main job is doing all the on-site wastewater work in the county. And next slide.
Chris, I'm gonna jump around here too. I'm gonna move that microphone mic just
Sure.
in that mark, just in case, because he's got a soft voice.
The main subject of conversation today, and I think that is picking me up okay.
It's going to. We're gonna make sure it does.
Can you hear me, Briar?
Or Dave can.
Dave, give me a thumbs up.
Briar's getting a cup of coffee.
Yes, I can. No.
So the main subject of conversation this morning is this large parcel east of Tillamook, south of Brookfield, west of McCormick Loop. It's about 46 acres, I believe. And it's a large piece of ground that is mainly used right now as farming. There's some wetlands and stuff up here that is pretty much untouched, but it's behind some rural residential homes here. And I guess the subject of conversation is what can we do with it? I mean, it's just this beautiful piece of land that's just sitting out there. Quite some time ago, and I was trying to think back to when this was, I think it might have been 2008 or 2010, the old owner of the property, Audra Raw, and I met out there to dig a ton of test pits because he originally wanted to subdivide it, do a little subdivision with, I think, 2-acre lots or something like that. At the time, that's probably the size of the lot he could do. So we dug a ton of test pits, and then that didn't really proceed. And the reason he was looking at doing test pits is even though there's all of this higher density residential areas here, city sewer ends pretty much at the fairgrounds and this subdivision. These houses here, if you look at this orange line, anything outside of that is outside of the city service area. And so even these homes on Brookfield and all these down on McCormick are on septic systems. Because the city doesn't, their services don't reach that far. Well, why can't the city just expand? They're having some issues with capacity and moving effluent from the east side of town over to the sewage treatment plant. The sewage treatment plant can handle, expansion and whatnot, but a lot of their infrastructure out here on the east side can't. They're pumping stations. They just can't, they don't have the capacity to move all that over. And plus, there's some issues with stormwater infiltration into their system, so they're being overwhelmed. Well, okay, so let's just fix that. Well, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, who knows what that price tag is because it keeps changing. So under current circumstances, getting any large development out here connected to city services is not feasible at this moment. Okay, so what do we do with that? Do we break it up into another large subdivision where we do, I don't know what the minimum lot size would be, 20,000?
Probably with the septic system.
Yeah.
Could probably go down to, well, actually, the size of the lots would be dependent upon what was needed for a septic system.
There's a lot of variability depending on what's available due to wetlands and common space and stuff like that. So there's a lot of questions, and I'm not going to get so deep into the weeds of numbers and stuff like that, but I'll give enough information to be dangerous. So like I said, 15 years ago, we probably did a bunch of test holes, and then we did another survey last summer. And next slide. And I mean, we could get into all the soils data and stuff like that, which is fascinating for me. Right now, it's basically being farmed, and I think when we went out there last summer, they had corn planted on it. And there is that Holden Creek that goes on the north side of it? So that creek comes through, and there's a lot of low-lying wetland areas around that. And then it slopes gently to the south and to the southeast, where you get kind of on a little bit of a higher ridge. And that's where we were looking at most of our test pits, and we found the upper surfaces to be a good medial loam, which is great for growing corn and grass and whatnot. It can be somewhat moderately drained, but there is a shallow water table out there. If we go down 25 to 35 inches, we're hitting a water table. Brookfield and that couple little streets north of Brookfield, I can't think of the name of them right now, and then Kenway. If we do houses up there on septic systems, we'll hit a water table. There's a cemented gravel layer about 3 feet down where Tillamook tends to get rainfall in the wintertime. And that water just perches on that cemented gravel layer and it sits there and it slowly makes its way to the creeks and drainages. So it's what we call a perched water table. And so you don't want to just stick a septic system right into a perched water table, because all of a sudden you're interjecting household waste into surface waters, subsurface waters that don't get enough treatment before they hit a creek. So that is kind of the soil conditions out there. When you look at what the county can do versus what has to go up to the state level, the county can only legally issue permits on parcels that are discharging less than 2,500 gallons per day. A single family home of 4 bedrooms is about 450 gallons per day. So that's, it kind of limits how much you can put on it. The last large community systems that we did in the county were Sahalee Shores and Nantucket Shores, both in South County. And those were done 2000, 2005.
Yeah.
Where they did large community systems. And I kind of have some examples of when you go through the state, not to knock the state people, the engineering and the design and all that stuff gets very complicated, very expensive. So it's always good when we look at these things, what do we have to do to keep it at county jurisdiction level?
When you say parcel, are you saying the 40 acres? Or are you saying the smaller parcels? If you were
The
subdivided,
rule says you cannot discharge more than 2,500 gallons per day per parcel.
if that was subdivided, it would be per parcel.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if we subdivide that down, and I'll get into some of those numbers later, if you start, partitioning it out, then we can handle 2,500 gallons per new lot.
Okay, thank you.
Like if we did 40 single-family home lots, and each of those, obviously a single-family home is not gonna go over 2,500 gallons. So then what do you do? What do you get your maximum benefit out of? So these numbers just say a 2-bedroom dwelling, like if we're talking about a bunch of 2-bedroom apartments or condos or cottages, townhomes, each of those can do 300 gallons per day. A 4-bedroom dwelling discharges 450 gallons per day. So if we did 8 2-bedroom dwellings, you're at 2,400 gallons per day. So if we chop that up into chunks that can handle 8 2-bedroom dwellings, and land use calls each dwelling something different. Under on-site, I don't care what you call it, we go by the gallons per day. So that's why I'll just use the term dwelling. It could be a cottage, it could be a townhome, it could be.
It's a unit. It's a livable unit.
So 8 2-bedroom dwellings per parcel, we could keep it under local jurisdiction because that's under the 2,500 gallons per day.
So to clarify, Chris, each property would have its own individual permit. So if you did a subdivision where we ended up, let's say we divided the lower 20 acres and we subdivided it. And each property was, let's say, 20,000 square feet. You could put up to 8 units on it, and they could have an individual system with a permit through the county. So it's as long as each individual property stays at 2,500 gallons or less, each of those property permits come through us. It's not an accumulation. It's by property.
Mhm. And with these soil conditions, if you were to do a single family home with a septic tank and a treatment pod, you're looking at about 150 lineal feet per home. If you were to do everything that you could do on the one unit, that would of course put it over the 2,500 gallons per day, but you would be looking at about 6,400 lineal feet of drain field. So that's a huge, massive drain field. And then Tuckett Shores and Sahali South don't come anywhere near that. So you're looking at the density that you want to do for housing, it just really pushes it way out. And if you were to go through the state to do like, keep it all as one parcel and do a ton of dwelling units out there, you're looking at a very complex system at $5 to $10 million, which is probably not what we want to spend on a development out there.
Well, 6,000 gallons a day, it was 2,400 feet of line for the system that we just put in the Tillamook RV.
Yeah, at the RV park. Yep. And that was the state. And so you know
It's not the province.
how complicated it is with their engineers and stuff like that. So it's easier and better to go through the local jurisdiction, split the property up into parcels that we can handle locally. We don't have to do a ton of engineering. We would do just septic tanks and treatment pods. Yeah, primary treatment of sewage is in the septic tank. Every house, everything that flushes down the toilet, sink, showers, laundry goes into a septic tank. And then that flows into, there's like 8 different companies that make treatment pods, so I can't just say one name. It's the advanced treatment pod. And that reduces the level of contaminants, so your drain field can be smaller, and then it discharges into a drain field, which in this case, because of the shallow water table, we would need to keep shallow, but we can do it with the pre-treatment. It adds a little to the cost, but we're only looking at, I hate to say a figure, but it's definitely a lot lower than $5 million. It's probably
30 and 50 for a.
30 and 50 at the most. Well, I don't know. I'd hate to nail it down, but it's definitely lower than $100,000 per chunk for the 8 units. So it's definitely, and you could do it in stages too. You could do one, get all that done, move on to the next one, do that one.
Each property by property.
Correct. It's a lot easier to handle. Yes, sir.
Is this a property that's owned by the county and you guys are trying to develop it, or are you looking for a developer to come in and develop it?
That I do not know.
So thank you, Rich, for asking that. So the county purchased the property. The exercise that we have completed that we are sharing today is because we know sewer is not a possibility at this time, was looking at development potential, given that on-site sanitation and on-site wastewater treatment system is needed. And then it was the pros and cons of, because no one has $5 to $10 million lying around for a community wastewater treatment system. If we look at if we look at on-site wastewater treatment systems, what does that look like? And what could the potential density be based on the number of gallons needed per dwelling unit?
Okay.
So that's what Chris is reporting on.
Okay.
Does the county have $30 million to give to the city to upgrade their system? Do they have 5 to 10 million to build their own system, or do they have smaller chunks to build it in smaller contained parcels?
What does pre-treatment mean about sewage?
Could you go to the next?
Oh, I'm sorry, am I getting ahead of?
So these are just residential shots. There's a house, everything goes into a septic tank, that's the primary. And then once it goes from the septic tank into, this is a Advantex AX20 pre-treatment pod. Basically, this type of setup has 50 textile baffles that filter all the effluent. If you want to see a great example of something new, the Tillamook RV Park, Pleasant Valley RV Park, those RV parks have gone to large scale units, which would probably be kind of what we would be thinking about with multiple dwelling units connected to one system. There's local contractors that can do that, that can install them.
And those are shallow enough to.
Correct, yeah, this one's about the size of a coffin. Not that much bigger than the septic tank. They can piggyback on the septic tank. The footprint's not very big. Sometimes we do pod farms. Nantucket Shores in one of those drawings shows they have a tank farm and a pod farm. The RV parks they set tanks up throughout the RV park, depending on the collection route of all the sewage, and then all that gets funneled to the pod farm, where all these pods are together. And I forget how many went in at Tillamook RV? 12. So it's just a matter of volume, how to handle it and where it goes. And then they put in a fairly substantial drain field in the field just north of them as you're going over the Juno Hill Bridge. It's down in that field down below, but you can't see it now because it's all been backfilled and covered up and it's been put back to metal.
So Chris, the pre-treatment system, which is that green coffin looking thing, is where the effluent goes first before it goes into the tank, which I believe is that lid right beside it on the same photo.
Correct. Well, it comes from the house into the septic tank.
Oh, I got my reverse.
Yep, and the septic tank is where all the solids settle out. All the solids from the home settle out, and that gets pumped out every 5 to 10 years, depending on the application. And then only the black water goes into the treatment pod, and then the treatment pod filters the black water into what some engineers would say would be drinkable, but I've never seen one of them drink it. So it cleans it up really well. It still doesn't get out all the pharmaceuticals and some of those micro toxins and things like that. So we still need to discharge it into a drain field. And like on an 8-unit cottage or townhome is the word we want to use, we're looking at about, where did that number go? About 150 lineal feet. No, 800 lineal feet. 150 was for a single family home. So it breaks it down into, or we could do a drain field. If any of you have not seen a drain field, that's what a drain field looks like when it's under construction. Or we could do it into smaller pressure beds, where it goes from that treatment pod and then gets dispersed into a pressure bed.
What is the dimensions of that pressure bed?
Depends on the size of the servicing.
It depends on how many gallons per day are going into it. Like on a single family home, if you had a septic tank, a treatment pod, it's only 200 square feet.
Mhm.
So if we were requiring 800 lineal feet per drain field, we could get a pressure bed down to just running like 400, 500 square feet. So it greatly reduces the amount of drain field that we need. It's a matter of getting into the weeds on the design. It's definitely a lot smaller than doing a large community-based system. A lot more cost effective and whatnot. So each 8-unit cluster, back it up one, thank you. Yes.
So if we're looking at the 40 acres overall, and you can build the ideal septic system,
Mhm.
how many houses could we put on there in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath format?
Each 8-unit cluster would require up to 4 septic tanks and maybe 2 treatment pods each, depending on size and capacity of units. And then each cluster would require up to about 800 lineal feet of drain inches. And if we wanted to get into the weeds on location and stuff like that, there was a consultant, go to the next one that shows it, that kind of laid a basic design out of 2 fourplexes per parcel, showing kind of like the stream buffer and the setbacks from the wetlands and stuff like that. And this is just a pure example of just how much space would be required to handle the units, driveway accesses, and how much room would be required on the property for the actual drain fields and stuff like that. So they kind of threw out this type, and this is completely hypothetical design, and in the orange and red showing how much room was needed for the actual drain fields. Tanks are pretty compact. You can kind of consolidate the tanks around the actual structures. then how much ground was gonna be needed per unit. So they kind of came up with a hypothesis of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 clusters of 8 units of 2 bedrooms.
Maybe I'm lost here. Was there some, I know this is all hypothetical, but is there a reason that we're only looking at large scale townhouses rather than single family houses and what that would look like is? Do we really need a bunch more of this giant buildings? That's what I'm confused.
Right, so what we tried to look at, that's a good question, was the spectrum of maximizing density, what that could look like without a sewer system. But then also what it could look like with 8 units of cottage clusters down to 4. And then duplexes and single family dwellings. In terms of the zoning for this property, basically, it's a blank slate. I mean, we could do a planned unit development and have some single families somewhere, attached units elsewhere, etc. But even so we can do single family, right? And I think what I thought about with this design was it theoretically shows where you could put 4 or 8 attached units or detached, right? And we did them attached, but there's areas within this still where you could do homes, smaller cluster developments, right? This was just ideally based on those setbacks and what you would need if we wanted to go for the gusto for some sort of development maximum potential. This could be what it could look like with those septic tanks and drain fields.
And you can do a bunch of single family homes. Each single family home though would need a yard, which is where the drain field would probably go, extra driveways and all that stuff. So that design was just maximizing housing units. And you can go down from there, depending on how many you need, you want, whatever. Like I said, these are just hypothetical situations showing you what you can do. The ground out there can support on-site wastewater. That's not a question. It's just a matter of doing it correctly with the correct technology of treatment and whatnot. And the only issue out there would be setbacks from that wetlands area. We can't put anything within 50 feet of surface water. So there's buffer zones that we need to stay out of, but there is that higher ridge down on the southern and eastern end. Do we want to stick a bunch of units right behind existing homes? That's not for me to decide. All I do is you tell me what you want and we design the system to go in the ground, and that's what I do.
And Chris, if I may interject, typically what we see in our line of work is because the systems have to maintain that distance from the wetland, but the structures themselves may not, right? Typically, it's about 25 feet. So that's why anything that comes to our office, like Nantucket Shores or Sahalee or other developments, the first person they talk to is Chris, because sanitation is going to drive density and it will most likely drive layout of lots, because there are more restrictions like you see here for the location of systems, soil types, water tables, etc. And then once they know where they can put the systems, then they start designing the lots around those with the building footprints.
A homeowner, and Chris could probably attest to this, a homeowner comes in the office and say, this is where I want my house. And I have to say, no, that's where the drain field has to go. Because the drain field gets the priority on the lot. Then your house has to go on what's ever left over. So you could crowd all the dwellings down along that wetlands area and then pump everything up, onto that higher ridge part.
So
And
this is
sometimes
sort
they
of
don't want to pump, which is then, right, because that adds more expense, so
Yep.
that influences the
It
decision.
depends on how complex you want to get
So
it.
this is kind of the maximum density allowable that we're looking at as a hypothetical.
You could probably go up a little bit,
But that's a fair number. How big is the lot again?
46 acres,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
but a big chunk of
Behind
it.
This road, wetland, all that, your
That's
max
right.
development, there's 40 units on a standard septic.
And the city owned, or the county owned this? The county. So there'd be an RFP for develop, or is this getting ahead of our? Never mind.
Yeah, right now, we're just in the education
Gotcha.
phase, and the commissioners have not had this report yet either. You guys are the first.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. Good question.
So Chris, in terms of costs, I'm sorry.
She was first. She beat you to it.
There's also a requirement for a backup septic field, right?
Correct.
Replace. So-
Yeah, and that's what the two different colors were. One was for the initial and one was for the backup.
Yeah, it's very complicated to arrange. I have a newer house and I have this booster system and a backup. And one thing that I've observed is that people in Tillamook County seem to think that you're independent when you have your own septic system because you're not beholden to the city. Oh, I don't have to pay that city water fee. But you have to pay another fee for the privilege of having the septic booster of $400 a year, which is the same as paying a fee to the city for a wastewater.
You're in the city, aren't you, Kristen? So
No,
that,
I'm
does
in the
that,
UGB.
does that pump fee go to the city though?
No, it goes to the state and it's the company.
You wanna-
have to have it.
If you're on a pre-treatment unit, you have to maintain a annual operation and maintenance.
Right, but the contract that you have with the maintenance of this thing is required by the state. It has to be checked twice a year. You have to pay them $400 for that and $100 for the septic permit. So it ends up being, in other words, a burden put on the homeowner that becomes invisibilized when you don't mention it.
Mhm. If you're on a standard system that doesn't require all this pre-treatment, you don't have to do that. But anything
Right,
under state rule, if you do a pressure bed, a sand filter, or an advanced treatment system, you have to maintain an annual maintenance contract. And that does get reported to us
right.
to make sure these treatment units are functioning correctly.
But we don't collect any money. Well, we
We
do.
do collect $93.93 for every system. And that's that big project Angela's working on right now.
I just think that we need to think about first, what's more important? Maximizing the density of the housing units on the land to meet a need for housing, which would give us more houses than 40 units, right? If you didn't have to have septic for each unit, if you had wastewater, which is expensive, but it's also expensive if you start adding up all those septic systems and all the decades that pile onto that for individual homeowners as well as city and
Yeah,
county.
what they're looking at is time frame.
Mhm.
If you wanna say, okay, let's hold out for high density in the sewer, I can tell you, the developer, I'm not banking you'll ever have sewer out there within 10 years. So does that land sit vacant, or now do you say, I'm gonna sacrifice some high density, go to septic units where we can get some housing availability? And so it's, I mean, to me, the county's not a developer. So at this point, the county's spending money to prove concept. Prove that, hey, this should be marketed because you can develop this many parcels on it. And they're gonna turn around and flip it. And they're gonna put it on a developer to put in the infrastructure, the cost. The county, in my mind, has no business being a developer. So,
Is there a plan on this to have it tie in with the city?
there's a pipe dream one.
That's what
The city wouldn't be able to take anything, and there's a moratorium on the entire east side of town. You cannot connect anything.
But what I'm saying is do you design it where it would dead end right into the streets? And then eventually the city,
Like prepare for hookup.
yeah,
Mhm.
From what the city's told me on a few other projects, you can do what they're talking about with septic staging. At the time of sewer availability, it will be on the homeowners to put a main line from their tank to the sewer and put a pump unit in those sewer systems pumping it.
I know.
But if you pre-sewer that neighborhood for
Get the pipe.
a potential of hookup, and I mean, that's really driving up your development costs to put all
And
that
it's not gonna increase your
infrastructure.
development, because once everything gets built, it's gonna be harder to infill around it, because it'll be partitioned into.
But the cost of putting the pipe in the ground when you're doing the roads and everything else may be a huge cost savings
on the future.
in the future.
Yeah.
But there's, every city every city sewer district in the county, and I've worked in a couple other jurisdictions in other parts of the country, every sewer district can modify their agreements with. So it could be like in Nescoin. You have to put in the tank that meets their requirements, but if they don't have service in the street, you do a drain fill. But once the city comes to you, or Nescoin comes to you, the district comes to you, then you have to abandon your drain field, but you've got the appropriate tank there to hook in. So that's an additional cost on the homeowner there. There are some jurisdictions that say you don't need to connect to city services until your system fails. And then we'll figure that out. So there may be an opportunity for negotiation between the city and whoever owns this to say, okay, that infrastructure is gonna be way too expensive to install up front. I mean, that becomes the negotiations, and I tend to stay out of those.
Dave Madison has a question online.
Yeah, I just want to give a little history of this. It's ironic that, yeah, Chris brought up the statement that if I remember, I was the planner there in Tillamook in 2010, and when Audra Raw first brought this up, and when the city rezoned some of its properties, we rezoned this to planned development for the sake, since it was in the city's urban growth area, for the sake of doing a high density open space development plan, and then extending that all the way up to Holden Creek on just off of Brookfield Avenue. And that was way back when it started talks in 2010, which then opened the which kind of increased the can of worms for the I&I in the sewer back then, and how we we're going to connect. And yeah, it's just interesting how the whole thing spilled out. So I just wanted to mention that as a comment. Thanks.
Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, Chris, in terms of costs, like for these Advantech systems and so on a per unit basis, do you have kind of an estimate of range of costs?
Well, I usually deal with individual homeowners, and it's about, that pod's about 10 grand per pod. When you're doing a commercial, and that was done through the state, so I'm not sure how much those bigger pods were. 25 grand, maybe.
I'm over $600,000 for a septic system for 6,000 gallons a day use.
And how many units does that serve?
Well, it's a trailer park, so they're rated differently, but
A mobile home is, or a RV is probably 100 gallons per day, so you're probably looking at least 60.
yeah, I think with
RVs out there.
the new 16 sites, she'll be at between 65 and 70 total. But like I said, I'm well over 600,000 for just the farm pod and the drain field.
And that cost gets downloaded to the homeowner via the developer. So it needs to be considered as a cost. Like you can't just ignore it and say, oh, we're not gonna put in a $10 million sewer line because we're gonna use septics. How much dollars is that gonna cost the developer and the homeowner? If it's $10 million, then you really need to weigh.
Well, for a developer to look at absorbing the cost of setting things up for septic today, sewer tomorrow. There's no date on that tomorrow.
Right.
And like I said, I've looked at a lot of properties, and honestly, the sewer district could throw 100 million at Tillamook, and I don't see it growing our potential for growth more than 20%. So they don't have 100 million. I mean, just to fix zone 5 pump stations, 4.8. So, I mean, it's hard from a development standpoint to say, yeah, I want to invest this money because someday I'm gonna get sewer hookup. Okay, but how your return on investment, I mean, if I did it, I don't plan on doing this in another 10 years. So if I can't get a return on investment in 10 years, then I'm losing money at the end. So it's all time frame. Infrastructure's a huge expense.
So $10,000 per pod, is that the cost per unit in the 40-unit development, for example? Are we looking at?
Or would one pod
That's
cover
just
for
the
you?
pod.
That's an individual
Like 25,000.
home pod, and then the pods to handle like an 8-unit townhome are, they make them bigger to handle you know, I can't tell you how big they make their treatment pods, but they make different pods to handle different flows. Or you just put them in parallel where, you know, you've got 4 pods in a little pod farm that handle all the flow. It really depends on the flow per development that we're talking about. I mean, you can adjust it all the way up to 6,000 per day or even higher. Like Sahali Shores, they don't have treatment pods. Everything is standard because the land that they apply their effluent to has great soil, deep, well draining. But if you look at Sahali Shores on the way down to Neskowin, none of their drain field is up on those hills. That's where all the houses are with the beautiful ocean views. They pump down under the highway. They own 2 40-acre lots way up Scherzinger Road, way up the mountain. And so they're pumping a ton of effluent a long ways away to get rid of it because they wanted to keep all the lots as ocean view and stuff like that. And then they bought 2 cheap lots back in the 80s to pump all their effluent to. And those are huge drain fields and they're standard drain fields. This is a different situation because of the high water table. We probably can't avoid doing the pre-treatment because of the high water table in some of these areas.
And Chris, if I may just interject, I think even though we don't know what the future of the property is, I mean, that's part of this exercise. So Kristen, you're right in that there are going to be extra costs just simply because of this option. It's this or they pay a monthly sewer bill. But I think one of the things that's important for us to remember is that, you know, the county purchased this property because it was 46 acres of residentially zoned, largely flat, no mapped floodplain property in Tillamook, right? So I think a big piece of this is that long-term investment in understanding that at the right time, the potential of that property to meet our housing needs in this area is huge. So it may not, like, I don't think the point of our conversation today is to decide what should happen. I think it's more of, this is the education piece the commission was desiring to make sure that you know, from our perspective, what that development potential and cost could look like today versus whether we wait 20 or 50 years when Chris is still working and decides to sink his retirement fund into this and do good work.
Well, I think the county purchased it because they seen what the 20-acre parcel next door that was purchased by Joel Stevens at the time. They didn't want to see large parcels like that get taken and then one house.
It was just, I was part of that negotiation team. I will just say from my own experience on that, it was just a larger picture of this is in the UGB. We have so little developable residentially zoned land in this area. You know, we wanted to make sure it would be able to be used in the future for that, whether it's one house tracks or
Right there.
Chris comes in.
Plus,
does
we
it for.
own it at, from what I understand, at a pretty
This is the
good
next
price.
to.
I would say so. There was an appraisal and stuff done, but I think all parties were happy when they bought.
This
it.
one,
Yeah,
So that it has a great potential
it's huge
to be
potential.
made into a kind of land trust, or at least portions of it. And I just would hate to give that up if you're gonna just make, you know, if you're just gonna think about the wastewater issue alone as how to utilize the land.
Well, what I envision at some point in time, Commissioner Fournier, because as part of this process, it has been to provide a report to the commissioners. Just so that I would say for the board's benefit and for the public's benefit to understand that we continue to look at this property carefully and thoughtfully to see what could be viable and appropriate either today or in the future. And that starts with all of you here.
I also want to just say, for me, this exercise is very important because we don't know what we can do with it. For instance, while it's sitting, I've been asking her, let me put an RV park in there, make some money for the fair. Let the county make some revenue rather than just renting it out for $500 a year for pasture land. So, but I needed this information to know if we could even put, because and I appreciate your information, what you just did, $600,000 for 16 units, that gives me a price tag of what's feasible for us to do, even if we do it on a temporary basis. Make it a park with a campground, you know, something so that it's not just sitting there vacant.
Well, and that shows you the increase in cost because she added 16 units.
She has more than that.
She has more prior to that, but it kicked it from her on-site sanitation that DQ wanted shut down to now she's too large for a standard, even a couple of Advantech systems. So then it forced to a pod farm. So like I said, the 600,000, that's septic equipment. Now you still need all the electrical that goes with it because you get into the bigger farm pods. You don't only have septic tanks and Advantechs, now you have blower tanks too, because you have to add aeration to it. So I mean, it becomes quite a complicated system. And like I said, that system takes up this room.
Right.
So.
But that's why this process is so helpful for us and it will be helpful. So I appreciate the work.
And that's why we talk about keeping it below the
Yeah.
2,500 gallons per day, because then we don't have to go to such extremes with engineering.
Yeah.
And to back up to what a couple people said, there was a large parcel just south of there that was sold a few years ago to someone. And they put one house, and it's this huge lot here, and they put one house on it. So
Also zoned for residential development.
anyway, so that took that big chunk and put one house on it.
So ultimately, our objective is to create more housing in the county. And the way to do that is to find a way to make this affordable or to a developer for it all to make sense. And of course, the infrastructure includes a lot of things, roads and sidewalks and fresh water and sewer and so on. And so it's gotta be affordable within that whole total cost. And I guess the question is then, can we provide sewer wastewater treatment there at a cost that would be acceptable to someone like Chris Wilkes? Given that if he were the developer, he'd have to put in roads and sidewalks and fresh water, et cetera, electricity and so on. That's really the question. Is it possible out there to provide wastewater treatment at a cost that would make it work for Chris Wilkes?
Well, would I take into consideration what they're doing now and with this exercise? They're proving concept of the availability for a certain amount of density. The county's not gonna go put in these systems.
No.
But they're gonna say, hey, we've done a study, we've looked at it, it's been beaten around. We're confident that you'll get approval for this setup. That's gonna take it from a developer standpoint, walking in on day one, instead of doing the year of legwork, the year of calls, the messing around, to, okay, well, they've already spent a bunch of money. The county's gonna recoup that investment, because now instead of having an unproven parcel, now they're trying to sell a parcel that has pre-approval for this system.
Makes a huge difference.
It'll add to the cost. The developer then just has to weigh if it's worth the investment, if he can recoup enough and profit off that many units.
Right.
I would also add that this exercise, to your point and your point, is as a county, this also gives us some direction for asking for CIPs at the congressional level for infrastructure. There's a lot, this helps to guide what I'm doing in Salem and DC to do that pie in the sky. Like I've talked about, we put a pre-treatment plant there that then pump it into the Tillamook system. So they're already getting pre-treated. And how much does that cost? It's a good exercise because if it's 100 million or 50 million to do that for this many units, then that gives me a number to start talking to Merkley's people and Wyden's people. And they every year there's money available for stuff like this. I know that Gomberg got a bunch for down south. So, but I need to know this to know what we should be focusing on. And then we need to make sure the builders know, like an RFP or just, is this even feasible? What should we be looking at? And I'll throw out this, that I personally think, because if you look at that map, that neighborhood next to the Champion Park Apartments is what I would like to see more of, than more large scale. Because the other thing that I think we need to be doing here is we're doing affordable housing, we're doing some workforce housing. And then what I'm seeing a big problem is people that want to work for the county or want to work for the county health department, they can't afford an Oceanside house, but they also want a yard for their dog and a kid to sit around. And we keep building these, in my opinion, these boxes where we're throwing people in it because we want more units. And I feel like we're losing the idea of community and
Neighborhood.
And I feel like I want to make sure that's.
There's a new development down in Beaver that they're doing, Case Roos, and I can't remember the size of the lots.
The lots are about 20,000 each.
but they're getting single family homes that are fairly reasonably priced, and they each have a septic tank and drain field for every home, so every home is self-contained. And he's doing quite a few down there.
And I've said like, no one likes to hear manufactured homes, but the reality is some of them are not bad and they last 30, 40, 50 years. And they're able to put them in quickly. So then you also, like, is part of that, could part of this thing be that where, just like you said, and then you can have houses. But I just feel like this is a good exercise to give me an idea and have these discussions.
And there are cottage clusters by definition. Well, not by definition, can fit into the model you just
Yes.
said of what we think of as upper level affordable, 80 to 120 plus, because then you have a bigger house with other houses. So it's, you're not making what in the old days, Cabrini Green, if people remember Chicago's
Yeah.
development, huge
Right.
thing. Mixed use and things like that, that you can have your cake and eat it too sometimes.
I agree. I think we're also moving towards like, when Tillamook was built, all those small houses, the neighborhoods next to the mill,
Right.
were mill houses. They were designed, and we're actually going back to where we have to, as employers, employers are buying property now to put their people in
Right.
currently, but it doesn't have to be a box. I can't entice somebody to come down here if they can't have a yard for their dog. And I mean, where you live is a perfect example. The Highlands up in that area is neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're expensive because they have a view. But anyway, I don't mean to disrupt. I really appreciate this work. This is super helpful.
Sure, you got a comment?
Yeah, Chris, is that property and the sewer septic system, is that shareable? I could take it to my people and see,
Which are you?
like the whole thing. With, what you put together.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, we can get so you guys will put the slide deck up.
It's on the website.
Yeah, and I think copies are in front of you.
Yeah.
Probably this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm talking about your, the plans on what you would recommend for the system.
Oh, we haven't come up with that yet. These are just generic,
Like even that would be.
talking points. Sure, yeah. Sizing, more details. I don't know how deep what a deep dive you wanted to go today.
I would say because this is still also to a degree hypothetical,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we have the soils data, we have different things. I would just caution that, this exercise that we put together for you guys is based on our professional opinion of what we think would be there. So just as long as it's understood, I mean, we're not ready for an RFP yet, right? Still got work to do, but
Be thinking about.
it's conceptual. It's all very
Yeah.
conceptual.
And what I could do is I can include what it would require for a single family home, up to 4 bedrooms. I could say what it would be for a duplex or a fourplex. We're doing the fourplexes on Fairview and Third Street Fairview. Those fourplexes right there before Trask and Olson Road, those are all on septic. So we're redoing one of them now. So I can give you the numbers on those type of things.
Yeah.
Just to give you a ballpark of sizing and whatnot.
And then after that's put together to Commissioner, we could take this to a board briefing and
Right.
schedule that so that Commissioner Bell and Commissioner Scar have an opportunity to hear this as well.
And Chris, do we
Pointed
need
to your
to,
point, this
are you combining these? You have two topics here. I'm looking at the clock and are
Sure, we can breeze
you
right through
cool with timing?
Yeah, we can breeze right into the brownfields. We can talk about this stuff later.
No, I don't, it's just, we got 20,
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to end at 11.
I mean, I could talk all day on sewer.
You can talk.
Good
shit all
attitude.
day.
I don't know what the line is on a conversation with using the S word. If my boss is in there.
So,
I just-
I don't know.
I say it 1,000 times. a
I
day.
mean, are we kind of, are people comfortable with this discussion moving on to the next?
I am.
And Parker, did I interrupt you?
No, it's all good.
Okay, brownfields, just a quick 5-minute talk on update on brownfields. In 22, Tillamook County got a $500,000 brownfields assessment grant. And basically what that is assessing sites for redevelopment. By assessment, I mean doing an EPA phase 1 and potentially phase 2, looking for potential contaminants on the ground, in the ground, things that could cause problems. There's a little bit of money for cleanup for these things. So Tillamook County hired a consultant, went in, looked at a couple areas, and some of these are moving on into stuff that you guys have been dealing with. The property, the Optmeyer property by the hospital was one of them. The broom handle, the paintbrush handle, place McCray, the one up in Wheeler. So we reapplied for a new grant cycle in 25, and we were awarded another $500,000 to do the same thing on different sites. So we picked several different sites. And the next slide is, it's 100% EPA funded. So all the money, every dime and nickel comes from the EPA. The county doesn't have to match any of it. And it provides money for phase 1 and phase 2 assessments, some site-specific cleanup plans, and then it provides outlets and funding sources for development and redevelopment. And one of them you have already talked about is Kevin Sluka's property in Beaver. And in fact, I'm meeting DEQ out there on the 16th to do the test holes for their redesign of their drain field down there. So that's one of our priority sites as part of this grant. There's other 2 properties in Beaver that we're looking at. I don't want to name them out loud right now because I don't know where we're going with them. The Port of Garibaldi has several processing facilities that they want to redevelop, old fish plants that are spooky to go through. We've gone through them. There's no electricity. There's dead pigeons everywhere.
Reinhardt Hospital.
Yeah. So there's several others. Beals Alley is one.
Where is that, Chris?
That is between the Elks Building and the Beals Building on Third and Main.
Yeah.
Behind, it goes all the way to 4th Street.
Behind
Behind the movie theater, the dance studio, which has apartments above it. And so the apartments entrance is on the back end. And they kind of dump out on a concrete stoop into like an old gravel decrepit driveway type thing with no parking or anything like that. There's several old fuel tanks buried in the ground back there. So it would be assessing those, finding the funding sources to remove those and cleaning that up. You know, maybe turning that one little narrow part to like a dump wall like Seattle had. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway,
And the Bills Building apartments will dump out into that same alley.
yeah, so this is the first step into getting that alleyway cleaned up, so people that live in apartments can kind of come out into a nice area that doesn't have a bunch of old heating storage tanks. The city, no one is in here from the city, right? The city did a bunch of work a few years ago and kind of just plowed right through some stuff and may have jumbled up the situation a little bit. But this will kind of clean a lot of that stuff up, get the electrical conduits and all that new power stuff kind of cleaned up. That's on the small end of the projects. There's another one by the Marine Mills where the city, I think, owns the lot that has a bunch of old railroad ties over the slough, and it's all starting to fall in. So that would be identifying any environmental concerns up there, because that was part of the old mills and stuff like that.
So, Chris, so these are all owned by different entities?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, in Tillamook County, it's the pass-through. We pass through, the money just passes through us from the EPA, the contractors and other development. So the county isn't making any money on it, but it's funneling the money to these projects to get stuff cleaned up.
And your role is to manage.
I'm managing that grant.
And what I like about these projects this year, so last year, I think all of the projects were housing redevelopment related focused. And this year you'll see some of them are not, but the economic redevelopment opportunities definitely go hand in hand with the housing. And that's why you're seeing also more of a mix this year between the two. And I think the Bills Alley is a great example of that quality of life and that cleanup improvement process that benefits the apartments that'll go above Bills in the future and the apartments that you guys help make possible above the dance studio. It's a great project.
Yeah, and we want to swing a little wider county-wise. We went, Garibaldi is kind of North County and Beaver's definitely South County. So we wanted to stretch it out into some other corners of the county. Beaver is growing with that new housing development and all those new houses going in down there. So with Kevin's project at the old Beaver Elementary School, you know, yeah, there's some fun stuff happening around, and this is kind of the springboard to get people into the development realm.
Yeah.
The redevelopment realm. So that was that grant in a nutshell, more to come. We're still in the initial phases of getting the new grant cycle up and running. It always takes a while, and there's so many hoops you have to go through when you're dealing with the federal agency. Any questions?
Do you apply for these every year?
It's a 5-year cycle.
5-year?
Yeah. And who knows, like this year, we applied and then they shut everything down for 6 weeks. And so everything just sat. So it really depends on how much. I was surprised that they actually had another cycle available. I thought they were pulling the plug and all that stuff. But yeah, they did have another cycle. So hopefully they pay us. Because we pay the contractor, we pay everything up front and then have to get reimbursed. And there's like this window. And I think the treasurer gets a little nervous when we shoot a bunch of money out on the hopes that we're gonna get it back.
Do you want to just give them an update real quick about the other septic program, the repair that you did in partnership with DEQ?
Okay, we had another $500,000 grant through DEQ, and this was leftover money from it's got a weird title because it's actually Coronavirus Recovery Act money that was left over. It got funneled to the state wildfire recovery mission down in specifically Lincoln City in that area that got into the fire and the redevelopment of that. So that money came through that. They didn't use it all. Then they sent a bunch over there. They didn't use it all. So then they had $500,000 left to send to Tillamook, Clatsop, and Columbia County. It was a cooperative grant, and Tillamook took the lead on managing that, replacing septic systems that were failing for qualified individuals. It was a 2-prong approach. If your income was low enough, you got a grant to replace your septic system for free. And basically the money came straight from the CAT, the Community Action Team, straight to the contractors. So the homeowner didn't have to pay a nickel. If you didn't qualify for that level and you qualified for another level, you got a 30-year, no interest, non-payable for 30 years or until you sold the house. So the contractor put in the system, he got paid to do the work. The homeowner didn't have to pay a nickel. It's a loan that's not due for 30 years or when the house sells with no interest. So unless you expect to live in that house for 30 years, which isn't the industry norm anymore, you kind of got a free septic system. But we focus mainly on failing septic systems. That's another thing I was going to talk about, but basically it was all failing systems of people that couldn't afford it. TEP, Tillamook Estuary Partnership, has a small grant fund right now that they're repairing failing septic systems that fall within the parameters of things that bleed into the estuary of Tillamook, like Mill Creek, Brickyard, Chance Road, those tributaries into Tillamook Bay. They're focusing on some systems that are old and very close to the waterways. So, and they have a small pool. Hopefully they'll get that up in future grant cycles.
And all of this is possible because of Chris. So I just want to say thank you, because all of these programs are because he's willing to do them.
Yeah, and I do feel that there's a need with low-income people that people have a failing septic system that they know they have, but they don't do anything about it because they don't have the money. Low-income people, elderly people, retired, they don't have the extra money to shell out $20,000 for a brand new system. There's funding sources out there. You just have to go into the weeds and find them. So I think we've done up to 35 systems so far over the past couple of years. The final numbers aren't in on that, but I think we've done 35, maybe even 45 failing septic systems have been replaced with just that one grant source alone. So that is a good success story.
Thanks, Chris.
With that, so we did the flow chart. So actually, public, any other questions before we go to public comments? Oh, Dave.
Just a thought for you with regard to the raw property. This piece that Chris has put together for us is such a huge step forward. It's really what we needed in a lot of ways, because as we said earlier, that's the first step to take. Now, in terms of keeping the momentum going, I'm just kind of wondering what we might do to help in that regard. So at the appropriate time, for example, it would make sense to bring say a master planning, mixed use planning consulting company in to kind of give us just an idea of what we might do out there. And if that were to cost some money, for example, I could see it, a possibility for our fund to be used to pay, say, $100,000 to bring somebody in to do that kind of work for us, able back to us when that property sells by the county, when they sell it to a developer. So I'd love to see this momentum continuing. And if there's a role for us to play in that, I should be open to considering that.
Thank you, Dave. So I would say our next step will be to share this information with the commissioners. Because, you know, again, you guys are the first one that had the opportunity to hear all this. And Commissioner Fournier, I think that should be part of a future discussion, is just directing staff and the Housing Commission of what you would like to see or what the board envisions that we do next, because it is exciting to have that momentum, and we can talk about what that means, and my team can go back and we can talk about some suggestions of what we could offer to the Housing Commission and the board for those next steps as well.
So any public comment? Anyone, did we have public online today?
No public online today, no.
Okay. Well, any final, or we didn't actually do, we don't do the minute anymore, but it people have updates of, oh, go ahead.
Well, so this is Elizabeth's last name. And so,
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys can all sign her placard up there, and Michelle's is up there as well. If you did not get a chance to sign hers, I have not delivered it to her yet. So I will put this at the table, and I hope you all sign it for Elizabeth, and if you have it for Michelle, do that as well.
Well, you're leaving us a legacy of not as little,
Yeah.
very convenient and clear assets.
Organized.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay, well, we're earlier. So if no one else has any further things, I guess we can adjourn the meeting at 10:53.
Thank you.
Thank you.